Hi, I'm Jeremy with the Howard County Library System, and this is my first plein air painting. And this is my setup. This French easel was given to me by a friend. I'm not sure how I'll like it, so I will let you know at the end of the painting. To clean my brushes, I'll be using lavender spike oil, and to help with the paint flow and drying, I'll be using liquid. The colors I'll be using for this painting are burnt sienna, cadmium red, sap green, brilliant purple, Hansa yellow, Prussian blue, Naples yellow, and titanium white. I'm starting with a pencil drawing, mainly to compose the building and get the path leading up to it. Then I'm using a larger bristle brush and blocking in all the shapes and colors. My main goal is to cover up as much space as quickly as possible so I can get to the detailed section of the painting. So right now you'll just see me kind of figuring out the locations of things and making sure that the colors are somewhat accurate. Once we've covered the entire canvas, it's time to find a smaller brush, and now we can start to work on some of the detail work. By detail work, I don't mean fine lines, rather work on finding the shadows and defining them accurately. So because it's a plein air and the light's always going to be changing, we want to really look for those highlights and shadows and try to use them to define the shapes that they're around. So regardless of what you're working on, whatever tonal value you're working on, if it's a light tone, then you're trying to work the shadows. If it's a dark tone, then you're trying to work the highlights, and that way you can build a nice three-dimensional shape. One of the reasons I enjoyed doing this plein air painting was because I got to be in the moment, but I also had to loosen up and kind of look at more of the broad features of what I was looking at rather than the minute details that I would do if I was in the studio. The other thing is the light was always changing, so you really had to try and capture it while it was right there. Also, the reference is great, and I got to omit and take things out that I didn't think were helping the painting. So there are these supports that are on the building that in the end I felt like they just muddied it up and didn't really make it make sense. So I decided to take those off, and I think it helped the artwork. In conclusion, my suggestion would be to start your painting with a wide bristle brush and use deliberate strokes to block in the colors and shapes first. Once you have your base layer completed, now focus on the shadows and highlights to make sure they're consistent and to help define your shapes. And lastly, try and work fast to capture the light as you see it, and only use smaller bristle brushes late in the painting when it's time to refine the small details. Okay, so in regard to how I liked using this French easel for a plein air painting, it ended up actually working well. The artwork was at the correct height the whole time, the easel felt sturdy, and it was able to hold all my supplies to and from the site. However, it is pretty big, and it's relatively heavy in comparison to other Bashab boxes. And it also has a lot of hardware and screws that if one was lost, it could make the whole easel useless. So overall, I will use it again until it breaks or I have a better option.